Good morning, everyone. It's another week here at the morning meeting. Thank you for joining. Sean, Dan, and I will take you through the day and kick things around and then take your questions and comments. As always, if you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. If you're new here, that's how it works. Raise your hand, get in the conversation. And if you're putting stuff in the chat, either here or on X or perhaps on YouTube, please no smack in the chat. Peace, love, and understanding is how we do things here. So please, if you want to be negative, I'll send me a text. I'll get you on with Abby Phillips, and you can attack other people to your heart's content.
Oh,
Happy
Um,
Monday.
Gentlemen, welcome in.
meow.
Sean, how was Father's Day?
Was that yesterday?
It was only yesterday.
Yeah, it was very good. I got a lot accomplished. I think that's the goal of Father's Day, isn't it?
It is. Get stuff done. Dan, how about you? I saw an excellent picture on Instagram of you and your family.
Yeah, my younger sister and her family are up from DC, and my mother is staying with us. So it was great. It's always great to see your family.
All right, Father's Day's
They're
done.
watching you right now, aren't they? That's the only time
Yeah,
someone says
there's
it's great
rumors
that
one of
everyone's
them may
in the
pop
house.
their head in later. Yep, exactly.
We like cameos. All right, the president is in Canada today at the G7. He's got a bunch of bilaterals, many of which haven't been announced. So we'll see while he's on the ground there who he meets with. Mexico, Canada, on the sidelines of the official sessions, which if you're watching on video, you see there. Meets bilat with the Canadian PM, Mr. Carney, at 11. There'll be questions there, I'm told. So look for that at 11 Eastern. Then noon, the official welcome. Then there's a series of sessions: 12:30 session one, 2:30 session two, 4:45 session three, family photo 7:45, and then a closed session at 8:15, and then a cultural event later tonight.
I got to say, one of my favorite diplomatic phrases that I learned when I was the assistant U.S. trade rep is, and you mentioned it, Mark, on the sidelines of. I'm always like, well, no, you're here. There's no sideline, but
Oh, it's the
it's
sidelines.
how they
It's the
describe
sidelines.
meetings that
Yes,
aren't part of the schedule.
exactly.
You think Trump DJs at all at the cultural event or no?
Oh yeah, he brought the
Okay.
iPad.
Probably they plug it in, or maybe use the Canadian Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. In any event, the president will be up there, and obviously lots of business will be done, and we'll see how much he talks. He did post some truths on the flight up, which we'll talk about. Don't know where the vice president is or what he's doing. Senate Finance today, House is out. Senate Finance is supposed to release its portion of the reconciliation bill, and they're going to finesse the SALT issue, but there's still a lot of questions there. The Intelligence Committee is having a closed briefing at 4 on the Senate side. Presumably lots there about Israel. And the gentleman who's accused of shooting the 2 Minnesota legislators is got a court appearance today at 1:30 p.m. And we'll see if we hear from him. All right, guys, let's get right into it. Iran, Israel, it's a nonstop breaking story. I'm looking at the side of another monitor and seeing there's lots going on. Dan, just what's your overview sense of where we're headed next?
I think the question at this point, given how successful Israel has been to date in terms of controlling the skies and basically doing what they want, is does Israel take out the leadership? I mean, are we looking at potential leadership change and some sort of revolution on the streets with a new government that presumably is hopefully more friendly, but we don't know. And I think that's where, a Netanyahu is trying to go to Trump into supporting this after rumors, or it was reported this weekend, Trump is against assassinating the Ayatollah.
That's the key. I mean, look, obviously they let that leak out for very diplomatic reasons. And this goes back to the discussion we had on Friday, which is while everybody gets that we're supplying Iran with intelligence and munitions, et cetera, they're trying to go overboard to make it very clear. Like, I don't even know who those guys in Israel are. Like, I mean, we told them not to fire anything. They're trying to have this balance. And I get what they're doing, but I mean, I don't think anybody buys it. But I will say Trump, if they had gone after the Ayatollah and taken him out, who knows where we would be today. I think that clearly shows two things. One, there's the restraint that the U.S. wants to show, and two, where Israel's trigger finger is. Right? They want regime change. They want him taken out. And so the question that you asked is, where's that balance? Where is the balance in the next few days between what Israel wants to do and what the U.S. is going to be willing give them the permission to do. And the problem is that Trump, you hear in the rhetoric, he thinks that somehow this is going to force Iran to the table for a deal. And I understand what his goal is. I just don't buy it. And I think that that's going to be the question. Where do we end up? How much frustration boils up in the next few days to the point where Israel says, well, Mr. President, we gave you some time. We now got to do what we got to do.
Yeah. So, based on the totality of what I know, here's what I think's going on. The president is pretending to be against assassination, and he's pretending to be hopeful about the peace talks. This is all to put the United States on the right side of good cop, while Netanyahu is bad cop, and to send a message to the Ayatollah: negotiate a real deal, or Israel will kill you, and I won't stand in the way. The other thing I think is going to happen is I think that either there'll be an actual attack on some American asset or human, or the United States will create one, and then we will use the B-52s and the bunker buster bombs to destroy Iran's nuclear capability. I'm not sure these things are going to happen, but I would keep an eye on them because they can kill the Ayatollah and they can take out the nuclear, the full nuclear capability, but only with the United States' help, and I think it's coming. Unless Iran surrenders. Yeah.
Right, which isn't going to happen. And I think that to your point, one, I'm not a believer in a manufactured event. I will say if Iran goes too far, then then that's going to happen. They
already broke windows at the embassy in Jerusalem, so it won't
Tel Aviv,
be hard to me.
Right?
No, I thought it was in Jerusalem. Isn't the embassy in Jerusalem? Isn't that what Donald Trump did in the first term?
No, he did, but my understanding was there's an outpost in Tel Aviv. There could be both.
I see what you're saying. Wrong. No, you might be right. I thought it was in Jerusalem, but I might be wrong. But my point is, governments create pretext all the time. It wouldn't be hard to do this, and Iran might hit a U.S. asset.
I think the problem is I don't disagree with the tactic. I just don't see Trump signing off on it.
And on the B-52s?
No. If an asset is hit, a true U.S. asset is hit,
yeah.
Then I think that's a much easier sell. But manufacturing one is going to be very hard for him to buy into.
Oh, I don't know. I agree with Mark. A Gulf of Tonkin style thing. Yeah,
exactly. I don't think they'll need to manufacture it. I think the trajectory we're on, Trump will basically say, if they don't surrender within X period of time, go ahead and assassinate the Ayatollah, and we'll find some reason.
The X factor in all of this right now, and you see it throughout all the press, is the fracture within MAGA world. You've got the Tucker Carlsons of the world calling him saying, "I can't believe you're doing this. You're going to kill everything." And then you've got people like Laura Loomer, Mark Levin, all on the "let's take them out" side.
And Newt.
Yeah, well, I'm a massive Newt fan, but I don't know that from a MAGA standpoint, that's like everyone knows where Newt is. He's always,
but I don't think the president's going to. You saw the president's comments to the Atlantic over the weekend. He's not letting MAGA call the shots on whether the regime survives, and I think Newt is more influential than even Laura Loomer with the president.
Oh no, like I said, he is, but I think the Bannons and the Posobiec's and the Tucker Carlsons are definitely making it clear that they're going to have a problem with this. I
think the big question is what comes next. Like, is this going so successful that now it's like, hey, let's go for it? Like, was it on the initial plan that this is exactly how we thought we'd go? We'll have very little resistance. Iran can't really do very much. And the end game is to take out the leadership. Because just like in Iraq, once we take them out, then what? Who owns it? Who's going to fix it and put it back together? Does Israel take responsibility? Is there a government that the Israelis have in waiting? An Iranian government that Israel is, kind of backdoored, or we have, that is going to go in with cash and basically some sort of logistical support from proxies.
I'd be stunned if the Israeli intelligence doesn't have like an org chart of their preferred government. All right. Over the weekend, yesterday, Bret Baier got another world exclusive. Congratulations, Bret, with the Prime Minister of Israel. It was an interesting interview, but one thing that definitely caught our eye was the accusation made by the Prime Minister that the two attempted assassinations of President Trump last year were orchestrated by Iran. 104, please.
These people who chant death to America, tried to assassinate President Trump twice, killed 241 of your Marines in Beirut, killed and injured thousands of American soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq, tried to bomb a restaurant in Washington, D.C., chant death to America, burn the American flag. Do you want these people to have nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to your cities? Of course not.
Yeah.
So we're defending ourselves, but we're also defending the world.
I want to talk about the nuclear threat, and I want to talk about President Trump. You just said Iran tried to assassinate President Trump twice. Do you have intel that the assassination attempts on President Trump were directly from Iran?
Through proxies, yes. Through their intel, yes. They want to kill him. Look, he's enemy number one.
So Dan, this is one. Sorry, this is one of the most inexplicable things in my career, that we know virtually nothing about the motivation, or even speculation about the motivation of the two potential assassins. And here's someone with access to amongst the best intel in the world saying unambiguously it's the Iranians. Sean.
So this is where a point of parliamentary inquiry here. I see. This is where I wish Brett had followed up the question. He didn't say the two assassinations. He said two.
I agree, except the follow-up.
Yeah, okay, so Dan, did you think what I thought? Because
exactly what I thought.
I thought it on the initial thing he said, but not on the follow-up. I mean,
see, this is where without getting too much into it, I do think that there are additional
It's been reported the Iranians had
correct
in here to kill. That has been reported. We don't know what those plans were.
But I think that
heard the same thing.
Okay, then we're on the same page, because this is where I think that people are taking this the wrong way. I think that everyone's saying, oh, because he said the number two, and there are two public events that we know of, the one in the Florida golf course and then obviously the one in Pennsylvania, that everyone said, oh, those must be the two. I don't think that's what he's talking about.
All right, let's get BB on two-way tonight and we'll clear it up.
Look,
you want to wait?
It could be. I mean, to your point, Mark, we don't know. The one thing I do think is he is trying to goad Trump into this. He is trying to play to his, macho revenge type of
100%. All right, Sean, real quick, what are you looking for at G7? You got Zelensky, you've got trade issues, you've got Israel, got Iran. What would you tell people to look for out of the G7 in Canada?
Three things. One, I think that any announcement, especially there should be a bilat happening now between Carney and Trump. Any announcement on further trade efforts between Canada and the U.S., specifically on critical minerals, on reaching a further deal. So I think we'll know more probably in an hour whether or not we're further along with work in Canada. But I know that there's an effort. Canada's parliament's going out soon. There's definitely a desire to get things done. The Canadians were in D.C. at the end of last week, kind of meeting with some key officials. And I know that there's a desire on both sides. So one, I think any progress on U.S.-Canada trade issues. Two, I think the Zelensky thing will get further attention because of the nature of what it is. And then I think three is any further discussion about China and the G7 and what they can do to counter it.
Dan.
I think it's all about July 9th. And does some country get nervous that Trump may put the tariffs back on and cut a deal of some sort, which would be great for Trump if he's able to do it? Because I think the question is, it's the taco issue. Does Trump?
Dan, that's why I think Canada. That's why I'm saying I think.
Well, but it's being reported that Trump wants to use the 2026 renegotiation of NAFTA as the leverage point, and he doesn't really feel the need to cut a deal with either of them right now, make them sweat as that draws closer. But you're right. Does somebody say, fine, let's just get this in the rearview mirror, and then he gets a little momentum for others? Because I think there's a stare down. Is he really
the issue right now is that we have some DoD funding mechanisms, research projects, et cetera, with critical minerals in Canada. Canada knows this. It's a hedge against China. And so Canada's using that as leverage to say, let's settle a lot of this stuff now. It may be a buffer to get to the full USMCA renegotiation, but Canada's using what they have in terms of critical minerals as a bargaining chip.
Okay, we could talk about the political assassinations in Minnesota for the full hour. As I said earlier, the guy's got a court appearance today. There's all sorts of implications about this. Elected officials, state, federal, local, are all understandably up in arms. We still don't quite understand enough about the motive of this guy. And, there's a huge media story here about how the left and the right are both, making their own claims about his motive when they don't really know. So, Dan, what would you say forward looking? What are you looking for now in terms of implications of what happened?
Violence is bipartisan. And, whether it was Gabby Giffords years ago or this or the attempts on Donald Trump and others. And I think what you're seeing is this, there was a story over the weekend about how much money the judiciary is asking for protection, for security, for judges at almost all levels. Members of the House increasingly don't want their schedules made public. When I was on the Hill back in the middle of the 2010s, it was basically decided to lock the doors of offices in the congressional office buildings used to be open, right? The people's house, people could come in, guests could walk in, you had to go through security, but office doors were open and you were greeted when you walked in. The decision was then made to close them. The decision was then made to lock them. It's a sad commentary on where things are going. And I think, I don't know the solution. This obviously would all cost money, but it's sad that Republicans and Democrats fear for their lives and that of their families these days.
Sean.
Yeah, 3 points. One, first of four now, because I'll number one associate myself with Dan. I think that it's ridiculous where we are. Two is I would say I found the media coverage rather despicable. You framed it correctly, Mark. There is unclear what the motives are. There's evidence on both sides. There are some speculating that it was purely about abortion. There was a note confirmed by law enforcement that he said no kings in his car. He was appointed by Tim Walz. And for the media to entirely focus this and frame it as a anti-abortion activist, which is what NBC and Politico and everybody had done, is just 100% false. We don't know the motive. If anything, it's definitely, with the evidence, the Minnesota law enforcement over the weekend asked people not to go to the No Kings rally purely because they had found evidence in his car where he was expressing sympathy with that side. So I found the media coverage of this absolutely disgusting. Three is, remember when we talked about Padilla on Friday, there are people, you can't assume that someone's just because you might recognize them, or like, this is the world that we all live in now.
Yep.
And I've dealt with it personally where you can't just go, oh, well, you had to have known that person couldn't have been a threat. When somebody comes at you, and in this case, the individual is dressed as a law enforcement individual, or somebody who, like Senator Padilla, walked into an event the other day, went after the secretary, started chanting. No one has to, it shouldn't take somebody to guess whether your motives, like the immediate instinct is to protect. And I think that Democrats in particular, over the past couple of years, have made it very clear. Maxine Waters telling people to surround Trump officials, make them uncomfortable. Chuck Schumer saying, we're going to come after you, Gorsuch. We're going to get you. This language from the left inciting violence has got to stop.
Yeah, as well as language from the right.
Exactly. Thank you very much. It's bipartisan.
Yeah. I will say that I didn't see everything they said, so please don't flood me with cherry-picked individual statements from Governor Walz and others. But I thought the Minnesota officials, from the governor and law enforcement, I thought they did a spectacular job, not just informing the public and the country, but striking the right balance between being strong and expressing the hurt the community's feeling. The Minnesota politicians are obviously deeply affected by this. Former speaker was very well liked, dealt across the aisle. I thought the statement, if you haven't seen it, there's a bipartisan statement from the congressional delegation that's excellent.
Yep.
So we all hope out of any tragedy, good can come. I really think the folks in Minnesota, both parties, have set a spectacular example for how to deal with something, this kind of unspeakable horror.
And I'll just say, Mark, because I just want to say quickly, I agree with everything you said, and I thought the way the president responded was a disgrace. For him to take a shot at Tim Walz being a terrible governor, just not where you do it. Not the time and place.
Where'd he do that? I didn't see that.
It was to
was it? I forget where it was.
A female network reporter.
When he's doing the gaggle on departure?
They asked if he was going to call Walz, and he said he may, but he said he's a terrible governor. He's awful. I mean, it just tone deaf. Tone deaf.
There was a female reporter for the Sunday shows that said she had called him.
Right.
Was that on audio and video?
No,
Or
yeah,
just,
no. It was
yeah,
just it was
yeah.
annotated.
That is horrible. Didn't see it, but it's horrible. Okay. Immigration. The president put a long Truth Social tweet out. We'll show it to you, but it's too long to read. Basically, he's gone from saying we're only deporting criminals to saying we're deporting everybody to saying we're deporting workers who've never committed crimes to saying we're not going to deport people in hospitality and
Agriculture.
agriculture to saying now in this long Truth Social post, we're going to deport people in blue places because the blue places are letting these people in to create all sorts of blue vision of America, of open borders. I don't know. He got transgender in there. I'm not sure how that affects this, but open borders and the people voting illegally and taking federal money, all the third world dystopia, etc. So the reality is this is good politics as far as I'm concerned for him because this creates pressure on the left, inspires, gets the right revved up, and allows him to deport a lot of people without his donors or his friends having their businesses disrupted. So, Sean, what's both the politics and substance of this going forward?
So during the first term, the most effective and compelling briefing I ever saw anyone give Trump was Sonny Perdue, former governor of of Georgia and the ag secretary. And he walked in very similar to the room. The reporting is that Brooke Rollins was the one who explained to him the impact that some of the stuff is having on the ag community. And Sonny Perdue walked in with a bunch of charts and just said they were all maps and said, I know what you're doing. Here's your policy, and I just wanted you to know how it's going to affect, which voters and where. And the president was immediately aware of the political impact of that. And I think Brooke Rollins, according to the reporting, did a very similar thing, which is just to show where this goes. So I think obviously we all know that Tom Homan and Steve Miller and others have made it clear that we're going to go after criminals first. But if you round up other people in the country illegally while you're doing it, you can't just let them go. You have to treat them, adjudicate that issue at the same time. I think that for them to continue to stay the focus on criminals, on people who have allegations of wrongdoing in this country is the right thing to do. But I also think this is a moment where Republicans should seize the moment. And there is this false choice that it continues to be perpetrated, which is that you have to give everyone a path to citizenship, which I fully disagree with. That we can use this moment while we have the majorities to recognize what we can do on immigration. I believe that if you are here through no fault of your own, you were a dreamer or whatever, you shouldn't be given citizenship. You shouldn't be rewarded with that. And that we could, if leaders were smart and the president and the White House wanted to seize the moment, they could figure out a way to do legal status, which would allow people to stay in the country but not get the right to vote and get the privilege of citizenship. So to me, the question isn't what we just do now, it's how do Republicans recognize that we have a guaranteed majority for another 18 months? Can we do something smart and seize that?
Yeah, to me, this is, what myself and others have been arguing the Democratic Party should have done to try to triangulate this issue, which is to admit there's a problem at the southern border, fully support closing it, admit that those who are here illegally have committed crimes, either here or in their home country, should not be here and deport them. And now go to the question of what do you do with all these people, right? Trump is admitting the obvious. You cannot blow up the US economy and tear these people out of the hospitality industry, the agriculture industry. If I were the Democrats, I would be all over TV talking about all the other industries in swing states that also are going to need to be exempted, because you're going to get local officials in the local chamber of commerce is coming out to say, amen. Trump knows it. He's very politically smart. So to me, it was genius. I laugh because only he can do 180 degree, or I'll say this is like 110 degree pivot and get away with it. Look, I think between this and Iran, the reason he did that tweet last night is it's red meat tossing out. Total red meat to the base to say, go focus on that shiny red ball, not what I did Friday evening and not what I'm going to do over the weekend, which is get us into further into the Middle East in this. So he's a genius, and our ineptitude allows him to move unabated.
Democrats,
Other than that, happy Monday.
Democrats, paralyzed on both Israel
Yep.
where they can only nibble around the edges in terms of criticism, and on that True Social post, because they know that this is they're in both places. They're operating from a very tough place to try to keep up with Trump, who's an 800-pound gorilla moving 500 miles an hour.
Well, and let's also admit, Chicago, J.B. Pritzker, welcome to the hot seat now. You're up like Gavin Newsom was.
Yeah.
Kathy Hochul in our mayoral race. Elise Stefanik had her moment against Hochul the other day. Raw politics. I mean, he's teeing people up to smack around.
By the way, total, like the idea that Hochul and Waltz agreed to I mean, like that to me, I was like watching those guys going, who told you this was a smart idea?
Yeah.
Second, Mark, when you say paralyzed, it got me thinking, like, I'm actually conflicted on this because on the one hand, I'm not sure that you really want former presidents, et cetera, weighing in, but it seems odd to me that there's been a degree of silence from Obama, who was the architect of the Iran nuclear deal that send them pallets of cash.
Well, also the deporter in chief.
Right, but I mean, where the idea that these guys are not only are not saying anything, but no one seems to be asking them. And this gets back to the role of the media, where it's not just what they do, it's what they don't do. It's not just what they cover, but it's what they don't cover. And I think this is another example where the idea that Susan Rice and Barack Obama and Jake Sullivan and have been able to remain silent is baffling.
Well, I think, but don't forget, one, you got to get Barack Obama in front of the microphone, right? And he's intentionally avoiding it. But two,
or you say he got asked and he didn't answer.
Obama's standing in the party continues to decline. I mean, you look at these most admired Democrats, who do you see as the leader of the Democratic Party? Obama's down at 3%, 2%, 4%. Like, it's an uncovered story how much his coalition and his place in the party is just kind of going down.
There's actually a great Axios chart the other day, to your point, Dan, that showed, I posted this, I think, on social media, and I have it in my Substack, of the most important endorsements on the left. It's Bernie Sanders, AOC. Like, no one wants the endorsement of Obama or Clinton.
Except Rahm Emanuel.
All right, two more topics, and then we'll go to your question. We'll go to your question. So please raise your hand if you want to be part of the conversation. We'll get to you in a second. Sean mentioned the media coverage. Okay, covered and what doesn't. Every news organization, part of the dominant media, should look at the way they covered the parade. It's just
disgusting.
I mean, I know how much they hate Donald Trump. I know that Donald Trump did some things in terms of spending the money and whatever, but he gave a very dignified-ish 7-minute speech. It was about celebrating the military, and a few people in the press, a few columnists on the left said, okay, it wasn't so bad. But Sean, what does the coverage of the parade mean for the future?
I'm looking for an item real quick. So look, the reason I think it's important is that the Army and the Navy were founded before the country, right? So my point is that this year we will careen into the 250th anniversary of the country. How do they handle that? The idea that most of these people called it Trump's parade is disgusting. CNN didn't bother to air the end of that beautiful celebration the other night, which I stole and posted if you want to go see it. It was moving and patriotic. And the idea that they chose to cover rallies called No Kings, when we don't, I mean, it was embarrassing for the media how this was covered.
Let me ask you, go ahead.
Hold on. And just the idea, and I've been saying this for a week leading up to this event, the United States Army alone has lost over 1 million Americans in the service of this country to give people the freedom to go do stupid crap like they did this weekend. And the idea that for one day, which also happened to be Flag Day, that you can't just stop and recognize that service is pathetic. And I've put up with a lot of stuff to flag burning and things over the years and said this is, but at some point, if you don't want to be in this country, then leave, get out. But there are people that have fought and died for the freedom that give us the ability to have this platform to allow you to protest. And if you want to go around and make fun of the president of the United States on a day, any day, go 365 of 4 other days, unless, are we in a leap year? You can do anything you want. Just pay a little respect to the people who actually serve this country. And I found it pathetic. This is the tweet from Chris Cillizza. I've never heard Trump given such a short speech. For all the people who said this would be about Trump, it hasn't been. And I tweeted back, all the people were you guys in the media. This wasn't like, they're acting like somehow they weren't complicit in this. The media's coverage of this was disgusting. And as we head into the 250th anniversary to celebrate this country, I hope that they learn a lesson from this.
There's also there's the World Cup, there's the Olympics, etc. And my question to you, Sean, is if you were the White House communications director and you said, we want this coverage to be for everyone. We want the coverage to not be hostile to Donald Trump, but be a celebration of these upcoming events. Is there stuff the White House could do better and different to defang the press on this? Or they don't care because they'd rather it be hostile because they can play off of that?
I think in a way they don't mind the conflict, right? I mean, they could have done like I thought that one of the things that's interesting is, and you and I and Dan talked about this pre-show. These events, granted, the parade itself manifested itself after the election, but the event itself, the celebration of the Army, has been planned since well over a year and a half. The Navy's event in Philadelphia this year, same thing. The 250th anniversary is this was all put on, by the way, by America 250. Go to the website. It's bipartisan.
But this is where you and I agree on the press and their instinct to cover it as an anti-Trump thing. But what you said, I agree with. The White House doesn't care. They might even prefer it. And I think
they might.
They have some of the responsibility then too. They need to say, look at what happened with this parade. We did nothing except egg them on. And if we want the anniversary celebrations, the World Cup, the Olympics, if we want those covered for all of America and not red-blue conflict, we should do things differently. I'd urge them to.
Here's where I would say this: they didn't. They could have maybe gone over the top. But for all the coverage about Trump's birthday, the only people who actually acknowledged Trump's birthday was the media. He didn't bring it up. They didn't bring it up.
I agree. This is mostly driven by the press. Dan, let me say one more thing and then get you in. I agree it's mostly driven by the press's attitude. But what I'm saying is the White House, I think, likes this because they like another source of conflict. Yeah. And they shouldn't. They should go to the press and say, folks, this is not about Donald Trump. This is about America. He's president. He's trying to preside over a ceremony for all the country. It may help Donald Trump politically, but that's not your decision to make, Dan.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is if they really wanted this to be a bipartisan a celebration of the military, you would make it bipartisan. Invite Democrats who served in the Army. There's plenty of them. Now, if they decline, put it out. Then Sean, you can really go on offense, right? This is bipartisan. It's not about Trump. We invited all these Democrats to come and honor the Army or later the Navy or whatever. They turned us down to them, it's partisan and to us, it's not. I agree. I think the White House loves this. It puts Trump on the side of the military. But I agree. The no king stuff is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I got in an argument with my own family about this. To me, it's just all over the map. The idea that he's a king is just absurd.
You guys do me a favor. Let just humor me for 60 seconds. War game this out. I take Dan's advice. I call Stephen Chung, the comms director, Taylor Budowitz, and say, hey, we had a great conversation on this morning. Dan threw out an idea. You should invite a bunch of high profile. So you know what? Mark Kelly from Arizona, Navy veteran, invite him. Mark Kelly gets the call. What does he say?
I think he would actually do it because honoring the Navy would be bipartisan and make him look bigger.
Come sit with the president.
Agree 100%.
Bring a constituent
of
yours.
He'd go? You think
I do.
Go?
I think some of them would go. I think some of them would go, and I think you invite them in a way that if they say no, you say, well, we're gonna have to let people know that. You know what I mean?
But that's okay. So that's what I wanted you to say.
But not in a negative way. Not in a negative way. Don't say, screw him. He could have come and he said no. Say, we wanted this to be a bipartisan event. We invited a bunch of Democrats. We invited them to bring constituents. They chose not to go. We think that's unfortunate, but we're going to keep asking because we want this to be a celebration 100%. Of our armed forces and not a partisan event.
All right. The last thing I'll say is you play that out, and guess how the media then reports that? Democrats refuse to attend event with Trump, and now we're back to where we are.
No, because you got to go the extra mile, and you get someone. You get a retired member of Congress who's a veteran and do a briefing for the press and say, folks, you want to cover everything as conflict. This isn't about conflict. This is about celebrating the military. We're trying to make this bipartisan. We really want it to be nonpartisan. And it's unfortunate that Democrats won't, but we're going to keep fighting to find some Democrats who want to be part of this. And they will.
So just I had a conversation with somebody yesterday afternoon who holds a very high profile, nonpartisan office. who said to me, I was excited to go. I was invited to sit in that box, and I had to turn it down because I know what would happen if I showed up in that, being seen
Yeah.
there. And that person, no, I'll keep the gender. And so I guess the point is, I get it, but at some point, it's like we know how the story ends.
I like when I don't read the chat ever, but I glance at it and I saw someone just call me now naive. I will say you can consign yourself to an America where we can't celebrate the military under certain types of presidents for all the country. I don't accept that status quo. I want to make it better because I don't think we should live in a country where we can't celebrate the Olympics or anything else that should bring us together because people have hatred towards the incumbent president. There you go. Last topic, and then we're going to your questions. Real quick, Dan, Randy Weingarten and another senior labor leader quit the DNC this weekend. They had supported the losing candidate for DNC chair, and they got demoted, and that played a role perhaps in their departure. But what up with the DNC to lose Randy Weingarten? Are they losing her because is there some meaning to Randy Weingarten departing? She's been a member of the DNC forever and ever.
Yeah, no, I think it sounds like, and you said it here earlier, that this was a little tit for tat, right? She went with Ben Wickler. He obviously didn't get it. She got demoted from a committee that she had served on for 15 years. Look, every day we're fighting. Every day we're fighting each other. We're not doing the steps necessary to try to win back Congress or governor's races or obviously 2028. It's just another stain. I mean, at some point, Ken Martin looks really bad that he's complaining in public. People are resigning, further embarrassing him. And it looks like nobody is in charge. And look, she is influential in the party. I don't love the influence of the unions within the Democratic Party, but she is an influential figure. She is beloved by a lot of institutional leaders. She's got friends all over Capitol Hill and in state capitals. So it's not insignificant that she's dropping out.
Sean, you want to comment on the other party?
Yeah, I would just say, I think the interesting thing is her comment about big tent and whatever, whether that was true or just a knife at him, I don't know. But I go back to what Dan said. This is just, we are now a couple months into this, having been part of a process of rebuilding a party under Reince previous tenure. Like, it's not easy, it's not hard, but you need to get people bought in. And there's a lot of haters. I remember at one point when I got on board, we had sort of had this massive credibility issue, and I was calling some people around to be part of this surrogate call. Very standard thing you do in a campaign or whatever. And very high level surrogates were saying, I can't be part of this because there's no credit. Like, people laugh at what, after Michael Steele and the comms effort that was there, we're not getting on we don't want to be associated with it. And it took a lot of grinding away with the donors, with everyone, to build back that credibility. Ken Martin, at this point, I agree with Dan. Stop whining, put your big boy pants on, and show some leadership.
He's in over his head.
Yep.
All right.
Mark, is he still DNC chair by end of year?
Yes. He's got his constituency.
The problem is, I will say this. This is, again, going back. I know this isn't the sexiest topic in the world, but the parties play a role in terms of infrastructure and data and voter reg and
setting the calendar.
Right, and the calendar. And if he can't do this now, those small things are what potential candidates need to rely on and look at. And it's like saying, I always compare the RNC and the DNC to the league, the MLB, the NFL. If the league can't put out a schedule, you can't play the game. Yeah. And at the end of the day, right now, Ken Martin can't even do the basics.
I don't think they're small things. They're big things. I think it was I may have this quote wrong, but I think it was the former RNC chair, Frank Fahrencroft, who said, haters going to hate.
He did. That was Frank.
Frank Fahrencroft. All right. Stacey, welcome in. Thank you for joining.
He said it first.
Grateful to have you here. Please tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Sean and Dan.
It's sunny wherever you are.
I'm in Austin, Texas. I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller.
Thank you. My recommendation, have the breakfast tacos.
Oh, let's not go there. That's more heated than most political discussions here in Austin. I want to tell you why I appreciate this show, because it feels like a throwback, political discourse environment. And I miss that environment so much. 10 years ago today, Donald Trump came down the escalator, and I had, as a longtime Republican, I grew up in the DC area. with Reagan as our president, everybody was conservative and loved Reagan. I was really super excited when Newt Gingrich did the contract with America. And I worked nights at the time, and I watched C-SPAN for the first 100 days. And I was in Texas by then, and we turned red. And it was just so exciting. And I felt the exact same way when Donald Trump came down the escalator. I thought, ooh, maybe as a conservative, I'll actually get something I voted for, which will be fun. You know what I mean? It was that kind of idea of it. And somebody pushed a button and broke brains, and it became open season on, some sort of weird hate and harshness. Mark, you speak to it, and I'm glad it doesn't exist in this forum. But, for Dan, I just want to seriously push back on the both sidesism. I did not hate Barack Obama. I liked Bill Clinton. I mean, obviously, he did a lot of things I agree with in coordination with that aforementioned Speaker of the House. There is something wrong. And I don't see anybody in Democratic leadership acknowledging the truth of it. It's like you're not an honest broker if you say it's both sidesism. You're allowed to say things about Donald Trump that would be considered completely unacceptable for my.
Stacey,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask you one
Yeah.
question.
Yes.
And then I'm going to turn you over to Dan and then Sean. Where was Barack Obama born?
In America.
Thank you. No further questions. Dan.
Yeah, I mean, like Stacey, thank you for watching. Thank you for coming on. I'm surprised we didn't flag this, that today is the 10th anniversary of the famous coming down of the escalator, and how much the country and the world has changed as a result of that.
That's because we're forward looking. That's
right. That's right. Thank you. I think are just not going to agree. I think what Barack Obama went through, starting with the birther movement, and the way that he was treated, go back to the escalator in that speech, right? I mean, you could argue that what Trump said needed to be said to shake the situation up, but it was a pretty confrontational thing, right? Part of his stump speeches that year were the Democrats hate America, right? Maybe some do, but most do not, right? I don't think January 6th was, and forget the act of violence, saying that the election was stolen and all this stuff, like both sides are guilty of saying awful things. I agree with you. Donald Trump in totality over 10 years has taken more incoming than anybody has taken in my lifetime, right? Bill Clinton took a lot. It was a different form. Barack Obama took it. George W. Bush being called, he was the original Hitler. That's what Democrats said in 05 and 06, that he was terrible. So it's unfortunate where things are going. But I will say Trump has taken more than anyone that I've known. But the other side has given it pretty darn good. And he has been the chief giver of a lot of stuff about Democrats.
Sean.
Yeah, I don't want to go down a huge rabbit hole on this, but I'll just say, this is something that didn't just happen with Trump. Conservatives have felt ostracized and silenced and censored for decades. I remember going back to, in the early 90s in college campus, like the idea of like what we did at my school to a graduation speaker because they didn't hew the liberal orthodoxy, literally canceled the graduation speaker because they didn't agree with a position that this individual had. Conservatives have been dealing with this for decades on end. The left has controlled academia, big government, the media, and suddenly once we start feeling a little buoyed because Donald Trump has led the way and showed us how to fight, everybody talks about like, well, now both sides. Like the reality is that the left led the way on this effort, and they go back to how things were handled with Bork. They sort of love to lead the way and then go, oh, but you guys said this too. And when you have all the advantages that they do, it's kind of funny because the retort is always like, well, now you've got Fox. It's like, so let me get this straight. We suffered for decades, and now your answer is we have one station.
Okay. Stacey, very grateful to you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for being so kind about the platform, and we hope you'll come back.
I love it. I listen to it every day. It's like a breath of fresh air. I love the different viewpoints. That's what I think politics is about, different ideas of good things to do for America, your city, your state. And I just wish we'd tone it down.
Okay, thank you. Grateful to you. Okay. Joe, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Dan and Sean.
Hey guys, thank you. I've been on the show before. This is my first time on the morning show, so I'm very grateful. I would echo the same sentiments as Stacey. It's really refreshing to see a political show that shows that we speak to each other kindly, nicely. We make our points. Sometimes it gets a little bit emotional, but that's fine too. On the night show, I've made the point that, I don't think things are going to change until the media itself changes. And I don't want to keep harping on that point, but I thought the juxtaposition of, the parade and the No Kings demonstrations. I live here in Bridgewater, New Jersey, right down the road from Bedminster, and they had major demonstrations all over New Jersey. In fact, a local paper had put the 40 different towns where these demonstrations were going to be, and you could link, and you could go to each of the towns. I doubt that they would have done that if the reverse was true. And the other thing that I kept on thinking was, are people really informed? Because I think with No Kings, it's really been the impetus. The impetus has been the immigration issue. But the truth is, and maybe you mentioned this before, and if you did, I missed it, and I apologize. But during Obama's first term, there were 3.2 million deportations, and in the beginning, 70% of them were people that didn't have any criminal records at all.
Yep.
And that there's been complete silence on that. And the hypocrisy is amazing to me.
Well, that's not just the media, right? That's also the left, which didn't protest it as much as they might have. I've been going back and trying to reconstruct it. Well, it's both, right? The press still should have covered it.
Right. Where was the outrage then?
Yeah.
Where was the outrage
the
then?
Obama people were very aware of the risk of the outrage and spent a lot of time behind the scenes trying to, keep it balanced, tamp it down, handhold. I mean, they were very well aware of the potential blowback. Very well aware, right? Yeah. They won Florida in 2008 because they got that I-4 corridor. They got Colombians and Venezuelans. And in fact, in 2012, they eked out Florida because they overperformed. I think it was with Puerto Ricans outside of Orlando. I think it was, what is the other country in South America that it was like 150,000 new people turned out. They were very well aware of how to do that and not let it get out of control in the press.
Yeah. Let's get Sean in. Sean.
I'll just make 2 points. I think it's funny. Like, there's obviously on the right a ton of clips of Obama in particular going around talking about how illegal aliens are taking jobs. And so it's funny how when it was Obama doing stuff, and I actually don't, I think, to be honest with you, that a lot of how they counted deportees were just turnaways at the border. So I actually think the Obama record is much less than he deserves credit for. But that's another. But it is amazing the number of people on the left, Hillary Clinton and others, who have been very clear about the impact of illegal aliens in this country, and yet no one says a damn thing. Number two, and I'm playing a bunch of these clips tonight on the show, Joe, that you kind of mentioned. There was a lot of man on the street interviews where people were walking up to so-called protesters this weekend and saying, "What are we protesting?" And they'd say, "Donald Trump." "Well, what don't you like?" "Well, he's doing things." "What things?" Well, two people in particular that I've got clips of say, "I don't know specifics." And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know who you are in life where a weekend comes along and you go, let me go down and protest something that I'm really not sure what I'm going to be doing and give up my Saturday or Sunday. It was mind-blowing. But it's this reflexive nature that it doesn't really matter what it is. It's just really the subtext is, I just don't like Donald Trump.
That's
and all I know is that somebody told me to show up like a sheep at the plaza at 9 a.m. and I'll be here. But I really don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And that says a lot about where we are as a society, that's what your priorities are on a weekend.
Joe, thank you. Grateful to you for coming in. All right, let's get the two Davids in. David, Z, you first. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind, and then David R, you'll ask your question as well, please.
Yes, I'm on here because you are desperate to hear the viewpoint of the Jewish American leftist from Brooklyn. So
That's
I know,
true.
I know Sean in particular is dying to hear what we have to
What's
say.
I've been waiting, David. I've been
David,
waiting.
what's your question or comment, David? And then we'll get the other David, and then Sean and Dan will.
Well, actually, I was my comment, of course, is about the men, women, and children who are currently under fire and dying in Tel Aviv and Tehran, both. And I don't think it's a particularly pleasant thing all around. But before I get to that, I wanted to say, I do find the No Kings thing to be a little bit silly because we already have a holiday to celebrate No Kings. It's coming up. It's July 4th. It doesn't celebrate the military, which I don't think we need any more celebrations of. And it doesn't celebrate Donald Trump's birthday or Donald Trump's point of view. It celebrates resistance to tyranny, which is the essence of this country and which we need a lot more of at this point, I'm convinced. It represents the idea that one person's predilections and moods do not determine what 300 million people do. But unfortunately, we seem to be headed in that direction.
Okay, David, thank you. Stand by. Other David, tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind.
Hi, everybody. Two-way. I'm New Jersey, outside of Philadelphia area. It's the second time I've been on. Was on mid-September during the election season. So glad to be on. And I guess my comment was going to be, I've been following the coverage basically on YouTube of the war between Israel and Iran. And I wanted to get your read. It's interesting to me. I'm try to listen to both sides, and they all say the opposite. I mean, Iran is saying they're not trying to kill civilians; they're hitting military targets, and the other side says, it's just interesting to me. You can see today on the media worldwide opinions, and that you never had before. You never had the access to before, which I think is useful. But I mean, I listen to both sides, and I don't really know what's going on. You're not sure as to really where things stand, in my opinion.
Sean, respond to both Davids if you would.
Yeah, first, second, David R. When you say you're not sure where things stand, what do you mean? Like,
well,
who the
basically,
aggressor
Iran is
who the
saying
bad person?
they're destroying Israel infrastructure, and they're not trying to attack civilians, but Israel is attacking civilians. You hear both sides accusing the other of I guess basically war crimes. That
Yeah.
and where things stand as far as I guess the outcome. I mean, I think I heard, well, Israel now is asking for help from the United States because they really can't get the job done. And if Israel can't destroy the nuclear systems, the nuclear capacity of Iran, and what's the answer going to be? What's the result? I mean, that's so. I'm just interested to hear both sides, and in war, you never know what's going on, but it's interesting to me that you have now the opportunity to hear more than one side.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. All I'll say is I think only one side is chanting death to America, death to Israel. Israel doesn't tend to chant death to Iran. Obviously, they're protecting their sovereignty, and so I think that there is definitely a difference in the side. There's unfortunately going to be collateral damage in any skirmish of this nature in terms of what, Israel's made it very clear what its targeting is. I think, again, I'm very open about which side I'm on this, but I think Iran has made no secret about you look at its targeting, they have gone after civilians. There's a difference between collateral damage that's not the target and targeting. and Iran has clearly targeted civilians. So that's that. To David Z, I will say it is fascinating that a self-described Brooklyn Democrat Jew is having the conservative side with you. Your own party is the ones that won't stand firm with Israel. So that's one area where you and I can't agree, and that's why I was excited that you were coming on this morning, is to stand firm with you this morning, David. I agree with you on July 1st. We do have a big rally where we, around the country, celebrate our independence, and that's hopefully another opportunity for the country to come together and recognize how great we are. I will disagree with you in the sense that I think anytime we can honor the military and the service and sacrifice of their families and the individuals who serve in it, we should take that moment. Too few people in this country are disconnected from service this day. We're down to about 1% that have any connection to the military. Fewer and fewer are serving in Congress, and we're making decisions as we're talking about now about how to respond. There are people behind that response that are willing to put their lives on the line for our national security and for the stability of the world, and we should thank them and honor them as much as possible. And I think it's a shame, frankly, that it was the last time we did so on a spectacular fashion since 1991. It shouldn't take winning a war to thank and honor them. And I know that we do stop once in a while and have a linen sheet sale a couple times a year when we also throw in a little honor. But to focus, to have a day that was just about them, I think was actually really cool. So I appreciate you being here, and I'm glad that we could stand in solidarity on Israel.
Dan, real quick.
Can I respond on the last one?
Real quick, because we're up against the
I'm
clock.
being misunderstood because I'm standing, strangely, talk about strange bedfellows. Today I'm standing with Tucker Carlson and yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I just read her very long tweet and I agreed with every word of it. We have been, once again, the Israelis have suckered the U.S. government into backing something disastrous. It will not end well. Iraq did not end well. Iran will not end well. People are dying, and there is really no point to this. So I'm in solidarity with Republicans, some Republicans.
Okay, David, thank you. Thanks to you both. Appreciate it. Sean, what do you have tonight?
Tonight, we've got Raheem Kassam, the editor of the National Pulse, obviously a former Brexit leader with Nigel Farage. And then John Reed is the lieutenant governor candidate in Virginia. Two states hold statewide elections, New Jersey and Virginia. And John is the lieutenant governor nominee. So a lot of politics, a lot of discussion about what's going on, continuing what we just talked about.
All right, let me tell you about some two-way stuff. Thank you for that, Sean. Noon today, Meghan McCain, Citizen McCain, her guests, Daniel Ryan Spalding, comedian, and Noah Rothman, senior writer at National Review. Please, I'll say again, if you've not sampled Meghan's show, today should be the day to watch Citizen McCain at noon Eastern, or you can watch it on demand on YouTube. Tonight at 6 on Two Way Tonight. Aaron Parness making his Two Way Tonight debut. He's of Midas Media. Again, those of you not familiar with Midas Media, it's a monster force, a massive audience on the progressive side. He will be here, and Kristen Davison, who we have on regularly, will be here as well. And we'll have full coverage of the president, the G7, and everything else going on in the world. Lastly, I want to tell you about a new program debuting tomorrow night here on Two Way at 7:30 Eastern, Cancer Decoded. We've told you before, as much as you all love the political programming here, and there will be more of it, there's programming on Two Way that is not political, and Cancer Decoded is one. I'll be doing it with Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, the owner of Los Angeles Times, one of the world's leading cancer experts, a cancer surgeon. And this program is meant to provide information and comfort. It's going to be a big focus of Two Way is to bring people together to explore the best information about diseases. Cancer is what we're starting with, but we will do others. Come if you want to learn more about cancer, whether you or your family or your friends are currently dealing with it or have dealt with it in the past. We're going to hear from experts. We're going to hear from families who've gone through it. We're going to hear from politicians and government officials, the best researchers. The idea is to create an authentic community around something that when it hits your family, there's nothing more serious, nothing more emotional.
I will just say, on a point of personal privilege here,
Yes, sir.
I mentioned this before. When my father was passing away, Patrick got very personally involved in some of the care. The work that he is doing is at the tip of the spear, bringing solutions to cancer and understanding not only what he's doing, but how the government is, I would believe, not my words, not his, standing in the way of progressing the solutions, the cures for cancer is unbelievable. So getting an opportunity to hear from him and to potentially question him should not be missed. He is, I mean, I can just tell you from my own personal experience, the feedback from doctors that spoke with him at the time, he is so far advanced in what he is doing and thinking about how to cure cancer. I urge you guys, if this is something that's touched you or you have a family member, uh, listen to what he has to say, because he understands where we need to be.
He is a singular presence. Whenever he's been on on 2A, the reaction's been extraordinary. We're super excited. This will be a weekly show, Tuesdays at 7:30. Tomorrow, first episode, the neuro-oncologist Dr. Simon Kagi is going to be our guest. He's going to be talking about brain tumors. But again, we'll be providing information, an opportunity to ask questions about anything related to cancer. So please join us tomorrow, first episode, 7:30 Eastern. We have other guests to announce soon. We look forward to your participating in that, and we're so honored to be able to work with him and his folks to do something that we think the two-way platform can do. It's, yes, it can foster political conversations like this, but the idea is to provide all people with great information in this kind of long format so people can understand the latest cancer research available to everyone. So we look forward to seeing you during then. And again, I'll see you at 6 tonight, and the three of us will be back at 9 Eastern tomorrow for another episode of the morning meeting. Thank you all for participating. We'll see you soon.